Welcome everyone to our Zoom SCAP Writers on Zoom. So I think this is the fourth one they've done, and Donna and I have been hosting this event and learning so much about writing and hearing so many fabulous poets. So we have a special guest, Bob Beagrie, tonight. We've got Heather Meldrum. We've got Cait McCullagh, we've got Martin Goldie, and we've got Bob Beagrie with us, and and Darren Beanie he's up from Brighton. So we've got quite varied voices and some fantastic work for you to hear. So we're going to start off this evening. This has been recorded, and it'll be loaded up onto the SCAP YouTube page with some information, and the SCAP website with some information, how you can learn and hear more from these writers that are here with us this evening. So I'm going to start now by introducing our first guest. Darren J. Beanie is a man I met through attaching myself onto a Zoom during those horrible dark times, and that was from Brighton. One of these places I've promised myself to go and walk the beaches and the bridges, and haven't yet done so. But I'm coming there now, Darren, this summer I'll be there. And what I heard, the writing I heard down there at Flight of the Dragonfly was incredible. If you don't know about it, you should find out about this. Get yourself onto their Zooms. They have flight journals. They have a small publishing house, a small publication they bring out. And Darren was one of the warmest hosts for someone I'd never met. Just a laugh, made you feel really comfortable, and he's a bit cool. So his introduction to himself, he's laughing there. Yeah, cool. Look at that hairdo. He describes himself as a co-host, and I know that's with Barbara Kirby-Shaw on Flight of the Dragonfly. It's a spoken word event on Zoom and live in Brighton. As I say, all of us here and all of you in the audience should be looking that up. He himself has 2 pamphlets published by Hedgehog Press and one by Alien Buddha Press. His new chapbook, The Fall of the Repetition Mixtape, which I like, is going to be published by Background Poetry on February the 10th, this week. And he's got another chapbook called Citizenship, and it's coming out by the very cool named Scumbag Press this summer. I think some of these titles and some of these publishers tells you something about this chap. Please welcome Darren J. Beanie.
Thanks, Linda. Lovely to be up in Scotland while still in my back room. It's fantastic. I did time my set. It came in at just under the maximum 7 minutes. So hopefully I'll still get there. Full Repetitive Mixtape is now coming out in March, not next week. But I'm going to start by reading a couple of poems from that. So the first one is called In the Park. 2 lovers, slaves to vibrant lust, muscles torn through all-out industry of full throttle passion, clandestine park bench rendezvous, whispered fake orgasms, a rigorous salute, some kind of true feeling. Real love story of repeated rustling bushes and stark naked bay tree shadow play performed half-heartedly, veiled by flat-out picnic blankets. 2 lovers, risk elaborate escapism, too much recreation and all kinds of kinetic torment, just for a brittle show of boating lake affection, parkrun sweethearts and park life sex. Willing and eager for playground dramas, mood swings and brassy bandstands playing bold, wasted ballads. Unconcerned, 2 lovers appreciate gates get locked at dusk and take a risk, accept being confined in a lifetime of love and embrace long-term injury. So the second one I'm going to read, also from Full Repetitive Mixtape, is called A Figure Walks. Naked through the thick-set bothersome orchard, arms windmill over a pop-up head, hair like an unfortunate pastel explosion, the face best not written about. Hands take each other on in frisky finger wrestling while holding in the midriff crackle. Bad dream genitalia flutter in a lunatic wind that rushes to be long gone. Plus-size legs stride on the tips of velvet crushed bullets, aiming to be toes. Frustrating fruit trees are ignored as a figure walks, researching the dead, dressed for business. Excuse me. So my first chapter that came out was called Honeydew, and this is from that. It's a collection of love poems. It's called Let Your Heart Dance. I fell in love the first time we danced, an uncoordinated, cack-handed avalanche. You bounced over on the balls of your fine feet and climbed on, staying put, as coy as a well-heeled, sassy lap dancer. My heart started drumming a repetitive beat, a marvellous manic melody. I was blinded by your groovy, glistening, glitterball eyes and felt the fever of your twinkling Travolta smile. I took the lead, resembling a playful, lovelorn puppy. My first left foot kicked my second left foot, and we began to get busy, tumbling toward one another, shaking, rattling and rolling, upsetting the rhythm with our rudeness. Showing little regard for tempo or decorum, neglecting our manners, we made our own moves, treating the rulebook to free flight as I pulled you close. Beating up the upbeat as we wrestled and submitted to an arse-pinching smoochathon. We crashed the party, burning up the rave, intensifying the heat of the latest sizzling tunes, gyrated like an uninhibited spin dryer on its last legs until my knees buckled in limbo against your vibrating thighs. The lasting effect of our disco damage choreographed the steps of our destiny as we gasped without resting and kissed without breathing and fell without landing. So Linda mentioned I've got a chapbook coming out in the summer with Scumbag Press. It's veiled political poems, I guess is the best way to describe them. This is red, white and blue wash. Our nasty civil service ignores the enormity of the downsides of their protection of the powerful. We are persuaded by lewd platitudes, unlikely to take offence or get mildly indignant. Their pictures are painted with honesty, allegedly. Facts are checked with zero equipment. Cassette tape loops will never come back to implicate. The distance is maintained by broadcast memorabilia, mantelpiece curios, 70s Cinzano moments, a wave of nostalgia and test card politics. The continuity militia announce hope and glory. Watch with mother. On the other side of the watershed, some mourn yet another lost transmission and fumble with tensed elbows, trying to align and adjust the Betamax tracking, refusing to use the remote. The second one from that is called Almost Found in the Garden. I lean on my windowsill, start to pick at the fabric of my mind, dig at surplus thoughts. Time passes rapidly, freezing the creeping thistles of my thinking, and I attend to an abundance of simple, fresh considerations. How many small spaces are there around the globe where winter might leave early, where pests and diseases are easy to place in a container made for troubleshooting, where it is simple to garner plentiful protection guarded by plum-faced centurions? I time travel, step by step, toward the right spot, plot my Jerusalem where I imagine sweet dumpling and weed out bad notions, where injustice has no bed and rich is measured by the number of coins in a shepherd's purse, where I fill on a feast of simple measures, DIY actions, gourmet harlequin colours and double red fruiting, love harvested for family, where happy is perennial and I find my mind will joyfully want to grow, and where I will always desire to come again. So last summer I produced a chapbook called The Fortune Teller's Yarn, Destiny Fucks with Milo, and it's a love story written over 17 and a bit poems. This one comes about the middle. It's called Destiny Has a Part to Play in All This. Destiny was put together this way, flame-proof gusset and hand cream, rewilding the arc of Milo's tall story. Love strikes Milo's innards, suckles on the sugar hit. Deaf, curious antibodies attack. What a reaction. antifreeze laced lips gather up for combat, suck off the tart recoil of relief. Stalemate. Passion is left like an abandoned knick-knack. No love poems survive. And I'll finish with a poem from Machinery of Life, which came out last year as well. And this is called Love You Tender. And this is especially for my wife, Jo. Over time, I seem to have lost my gentle touch. Middle-aged spread has left me heavy-handed. I fumble about your personal fingers, thumbs, and knuckles, as delicate as a rocket launch, making you tremble at the thought of what is to come. I grope my way around you like an awful puppeteer. My gangling hands run amok on your body, gallop over you like a rotund shire horse. Yet you eventually succumb to my awkward wrestler's hold and become damp, putty in my sweaty mitts. And I'm not sure why, since I can seldom put my awkward finger on it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Linda.
Wow. Wow. Well, Darren, what a combination there at the end with no love poems survive, followed by that poem to your wife or for your wife. And I'm sure a lot of that is very self-effacing. I hope so for her sake, Dan.
Who knows, Linda? Who knows?
I absolutely love this. Also, I think the parks you're visiting sound very interesting. These parks, well, these parks sounded something.
Yeah, come down to Brighton.
You take me around these parks, me and your wife together. That's going to be something else, I tell you. Loved it. But there was some beautiful points in there when you were talking about the first foot kick, the left foot, but then just the way you read that, you know, you're talking again that, you know, like a puppy not able to do what you're doing, and then there's just a beautiful bit where the way you read it, it was just close. And it just was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. So such a kind of run there between whispered fake orgasm, long-term injury. I'd rather not try and just go for long-term injury. The kind of different combinations there of love, lust, desire, and fear as well. I felt I absolutely love them. I'm going to buy all of these pamphlets. You have to give me a link to get everything.
Will do. Thanks, Linda.
That was Darren J. Beanie, folks. Absolutely fantastic. So our next writer I'm going to introduce is a woman that I met, I think, for the first time in Paisley. And I think it was certainly for the first time in my hometown of Paisley. I went to a writer's event there and I was really stunned by her performance and a committed kind of, well, I would say womanist writing, which obviously was interested me a lot. Then I took myself down to Greenock, and there she was sitting there. So that was a nice wee, hello, there you are again. It was lovely to meet her. We had a good chat about writing and the rest of it. And since then, I've heard her a few times. Her description of herself, she describes herself as a feminist and interested in politics, political poetry. She enjoys collaborating with other people on artwork and also theatre, working in the theatre. So she's been exploring a lot of ways to be self-expressive and expressive with others. But then, as she says, with the good guidance of the Scribblers Union, she's found her way into her poetic voice. And that is such a joy and a reward for us. And we're just going to hear her now. Please welcome Heather Meldrum.
Thank you very much, Linda. I suppose like a lot of women, I've always sort of been interested in writing and doing things, but you're working full time and you just, by the time you work full time, family, the whole thing, it took me to retire before I actually got to do what I wanted to do. So this is the start of my journey. I've got 3 poems for you tonight, all 3 quite different. The first one is came about when I was watching the news and the refugees crossing the channel and Ukraine and all the rest of it. So this poem's about that, and it's just called Mohammed. Mohammed's got a ticket for the vessel of dreams. I won't say a berth or a seat, just a place to put his feet. purchased for a one-way fee in pounds, dollars, or rupees. Doesn't matter, you're young or old. Nigerian, Syrian, Palestinian, you're destined to lose in this political cruise. Turns out, the Daily Mail says Ukrainians are okay, because their white skin has a right of way. It's only black skin that carries no sway. And night after night, on social media and telly, we witness the world's fragmented underbelly. And as we numb our brains to dull the pain, social media trolls, smiley emojis, when Westminster sends them onwards to Rwandan landlords. Mohammed doesn't know it's going to be this way, muddled, puzzled. He can't understand why the tanks and shells that bomb his home have less currency than the tanks and shells that bombed Thomas's home. Or his mother's black hands that dug through the wreckage to find his dead brother are worth less in the hands of another mother. He just wants to break free of the fear of the gun, to live in a safer world with her son. Instead, she got fishing trawlers netting their bodies at sea. The seagulls, ordained in the skies they patrol, pray at the altar of waves as they usher the dead into their saline graves. Their tombs forever embossed in Portland, Wright and Dover seas. Thank you. This next one I'm going to do, I don't know if people are familiar with the story of the Gorbals vampire. But the Gorbals vampire is a real event. It's a real situation that happened in the Gorbals in Glasgow in 1954, where children were convinced there was a vampire in the cemetery and they were going out to get this vampire. So the whole thing was a big to-do, and it ended up being discussed in Westminster, and from it came the Handful Publications to Children Act. So this is about the Gorbals vampire. It's a great story. You must Google it, and I don't know why anybody's not made a film about it yet, but it's great. So Gorbals vampire. Johnny was a Gorbals lad, a tenement flat and toilet out the yard. He wore short pants and holes in elbows, his knees all wobbly, bloody and scabbed. Water leaping through his shoes paid witness to his lottery of scarcity and poverty and a life of ducking blows. As the school bells rang, Johnny gathered up his guppies and with terror oozing through their bones set off with sticks and stones to catch a monster bolder than the granite stones. Wreathed in smoke, they prowled the graveyard beat, long grass poking up bare legs and feet. The stench of sulphur and savage winds stirred into a toxic soup as flickering flames and gravestones danced with ashen soot. Younger ones, perched on the cemetery walls, trembled like old drunks after a night in the cells. Cries called out, and then others, "He's over there! No, he's over there!" And with their fists drawn up against the unknown, they punched through fog with knuckle bones and stabbed it with their sticks and stones. Hysteria soon blots out what's happening in the streets as the parents arrived with the bobby and the beat. Kids refusing to budge scurry from place to place, and the dogs prowl in search of the scent. Those outraged thought something to blame. And Westminster made an astonishing claim. A repulsive American comics were blamed. Smog, poverty, malnutrition, disclaimed. And at dawn, the vampire took a bow and a wide yawn. And the ghost, the Gorbals vampire, was gone. Thank you. This next one is quite different. This was inspired by a book I read ages ago by a woman called Catherine Simpson, and it's called I Used to Have a Sister. And in the book, she discusses the process of going through and clearing out somebody's belongings when somebody has died, etc. So this was inspired by that. How do you say goodbye to a lover, a family, friends, a favourite song, a piece of music, a poem at the grave, and then a drink or two to say au revoir and see them on their way? Our memories flip from childhood scripts to melancholy woes as stories flow of myths and tales bequeathed through DNA. Life's luggage gets taken apart, decoded, reminisced. A ruby ring, a pearl earring, appointments missed. A shoe of long forgotten travel tickets, confetti and a silver horseshoe, luck amongst the Christmas cards. From those, we do not know, but everyone a story to tell. And now, in our best thuggish self, we vandalise your voice, desecrate your rusty tins filled with analogue photos of women in silk scarves and men in khaki suits. The images and truths become distorted, change before our very eyes as we search to prove our memories wise, finding only trinkets, looking for somewhere to nest. Suppose it's time to box them up, set aside for charity and skip as inch by inch we dismantle your life. Some things make it into a memory box. Our grief turns the key and locks, and we leave it for the next generation to scrutinise as valuable or not. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that was very moving, Heather, actually. I think all of us know that experience. I've just finished reading a book by Graham Fulton, which is to his mother. It's just about bin bags, taking bin bags around and deciding what goes in them and what goes somewhere else. And funny enough, I'm doing a wee bit of work just now for Larry, and looking at what's left. It's the Living and Dying project. He's got the book out and he's been doing some work, so I'm looking at what's left. And some of the things you were saying there, I'll text you and ask if it's okay if I use them, because I think one of the things that struck me really, which obviously with my mum dying a couple of years ago, one of the ones that you mentioned there was the Christmas cards, old Christmas cards that they've kept that really meant something to them. And you don't even know the people, but everyone's a story. If you could meet these people, they could tell you a story about their time with your loved one or whatever. I thought that was really a very, very moving piece. And I had invited Catherine Simpson to read from that book, which when it came out, she read it at Finn's Place in Battlefield. And it did speak to so many people in the room, just because it's something that everyone goes through. And I was teaching in Gorbals yesterday. I'm going to steal everything you did there. I'm telling them as soon as I see them about the vampire. I'm going out in the fog. Hope there's some fog soon. That's a great thing. I didn't know anything about that. And I'm interested to see the Westminster document that came out. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. And I loved your delivery. It was just so electric and, you know, present. Fantastic. That was really lovely. So at this point, I'm going to introduce my co-host for these sessions, who is Donna Campbell. And I was very fortunate as a publisher of Seahorse, editor of Seahorse, my wee publishing house. I published Mongrel early last year or the year before, I can't remember, probably early last year. And this year I'm just about to do well, I'm finishing off the book Looking for Mae West, which in Donna's inimitable fashion just hits home. Really hits home. So I can't wait. That's going to be launched in March the 27th. So it's great to be working with Donna, traveling with the Wanderlust women and doing all the things. So it's really great to have this girl, this woman working with her. And hello, Hen.
How's it going, Hen?
So yeah, so she was also away in Gran Canaria walking the beaches and trying to pretend to me that she didn't hear me coughing. I was 2 weeks coughing. She was in the room next door saying in the morning, I never heard anything. I mean, honestly, the whole building must have heard me. And that sweet girl was just like, nah, I never heard a thing. So she is a love. She's a brilliant writer and she's great to have here doing this with us. So I'm going to hand over to Donna, who's going to take over now and introduce a couple of our next acts. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you very much, Linda. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well out there. I was just thinking, I was listening to Heather and Darren, what a fantastic way to spend a Wednesday evening. We're sitting in our own houses. Well, I'm warm. We're all warm and relaxed and listening to all these different poets and having the pleasure, the luxury of having like Zoom. I mean, imagine a few years ago, we just didn't have this kind of technology, and now we have. And like Darren and Heather, we had love, lust, and politics and vampire, and they all kind of seem to go together. So they do. There's a big mural down, I live in the Gorbals, so just down where the arches are, there's a mural of the Gorbals vampire, and it's really quite creepy the way they've done his hands. It really is. But without further ado, tonight Martin Goldie. What can I say about Martin Goldie? First, I think met Martin round the open mic nights. In fact, you're really busy around the open mic nights, and his poetry was really noticeable because it was very poetic, and I just loved his stuff. And then I heard that he'd only been writing poetry for 2 years, and it's like I've been writing stuff for about 20 years and just never gotten to that kind of level of poetica. Yeah, so Martin just as well had his first collection out in November of last year called Unshackled, and you'll need to hold up the book as well, Martin, to show us. But I'm going to read what Martin has sent me in his bio. So Martin Goldie is 63 and lives and works in Argyll with his wife Janice and their dogs. In his spare time, he is a keen hill walker and golfer. He also loves reading and listening to music. He started writing poetry in 2020, and many of his poems are inspired by the mountains and glens of Scotland, where he loves to walk, and the stories and history of the areas he visits. Martin regularly contributes to open mic sessions in and around Glasgow and to online poetry events. His poems have appeared in Dreich and We Dreich Writers magazine and have been published in numerous magazines and anthologies, both in the UK and internationally. His poem, First Ascent, was a winner in the Mountaineering Scotland Poetry Competition in 2022. His collection, Unshackled, was published in November 2022 by Seahorse Publications. So see, he's only been writing poetry for 2 years. Wait till you hear this. Martin Goldie, take it away.
Thank you very much. It's always embarrassing hearing your bio, but thank you, that was nice. I'm going to start with a new poem, and then I'm going to go into 3 poems from the book. But the first poem is called An Awful Confusion. She sits like my mum sits, stacked on a chair by a bed. She sits as though she was deep in thought, gently patting a crease on her neat, clean check shirt. On her bedside cabinet, alongside untouched fruit and chocolate, from a dark wood frame, bright young eyes laughing beam, grace and steel in faded 50s sepia, new lovers happy being. And here she sits alone, her life's love gone, one of the few remaining of the bright young of that greatest of generations, of those who saw the rise and fall and rise of tyrants, watched Europe war, then unite, then divide, felt the chill shiver of a cold world on the brink, and in a blink, a full life lived. And here sat old and frail in that cold ward, to heal, I pray, that same face, that same smile. But from a sadness in her eyes, I saw she wanted hard to know me. And as we sat with our hands clasped tight, face to face, son to mum, mum to son, from the depths of that once keen crystal mind, with strength innate and grit and resilience born and nurtured, in a voice as clear as a cold blue sky, my gone dad's words uttered in my mum's sweet voice. I don't give up. We don't give up. I don't give up. We don't give up. A mantra for a life, that will to live born of love, love given and received, love that drags the soul from dark despair, and even in that awful confusion, a love that never can be taken. Thank you. Quite a hard wee poem to read that, but quite nice.
Oh.
This is called Etif Inversion. Waked at last to spring's bright dawn, effort cold and broken sleep forgotten now, for as I slept, cold air crept, furtive from the rugged west, and drowned lush Etif in a sea of cloud. And in that new day's golden light, from my quiet windless height, grey peaks sailed like ships afloat, a calm slate sea. Thank you. This is called If It Should Happen. If it should happen, I want it to happen here, near home, on a rock alone, in the quiet of a new day's dawn, looking east to pink lush hills, a swan's wake world with noisy quarrel, a seals sit wet on bare black rocks, awaiting sun that may not come, when the chime of finch and thrush sail to blue from misty oak, rising lime from golden shore, on edge of drifting sea, reflecting broom I know and love. Thank you. It's called Lochake Chill. In silent chill of a quiet morning's feeble light, barefoot stood in soaking mist, clung like purple veil to sleepy spruce, watched by early waking birds, perched in leafless birch. Shivering, we fought the fear of deep dark loch, giggling slipped free from shingle shore to silent misty pitch. Immersed in deep, we felt at once the ice-cold hug of loch's embrace, the tender itch of waking skin, the drum of beating heart on breathless chest. With strength renewed, and new resolve, a new day's dawn to savour. Thank you. And this is the last poem of this set, and it's actually a new poem. It'll go down well. It's called By Empty Shore. On old crust's rust rug, beyond all urban noise and fury, autumn's soft sun splash lit grey the mountain's rump, burned jade meadow lime, flamed hot crimson the soft slate sea, touching quiet our empty shore. On russet slopes fading daisies glowed, noiseless streams raced white past gravid rounds, dripping ravens sour-pecked fruit. In dream of butterflies we lay, drifting slow by tender tide, wind-brushed shingle, soft lullaby. In the sleepy warmth of golden grasses, between unimportant conversations, we gorged on moist wild blueberries, judged by lean blazing foxes, hid faint on hungry hunt. In that special dusk, speeding on to moonless dark, warm sweet rain washed our beaming faces, waked and raised to sky. Thank you very much.
That's absolutely beautiful. It's the rhythm of your words, like it makes my heart sing, and I can feel like there's a rhythm there that you could even dance to. Absolutely beautiful, and just the timbre of your voice as well is lovely with your poems. You were saying about your mother, and I was thinking about old people, like and how sometimes I look at an old person, I forget that there's a life, that they've lived a life, but all I see sometimes is the old person sitting there and not realising, that what they could tell me and what they've seen in that lifetime. And then it's just that the mother and son, that bond, that special bond there. Also as well, when you're doing the poems about the hills and nature and that, it's very mythical. It was kind of remind me of Lord of the Rings a wee bit, that kind of, don't know, it's like the myths that you're creating around these places. Absolutely beautiful. And yeah, just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I could have listened to more. It just seemed to go in very, very quickly there. Yeah, which is, I know it's not enough time, is it? But absolutely beautiful. Martin, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, you're fine. You didn't. But Martin, thank you very much for that. Absolute pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you. That was fabulous. So the next guest that we have on tonight is Cait O'Neill McCullagh. And again, Cait has only been writing for 2 years. What is happening here? What is going on? What's happening? It's not fair. Like, people that are only writing for this short time and coming away with absolutely magical stuff. First met Cait up in Stonehaven. Met you briefly there. Was that was summer just there, I think, and it was absolutely beautiful, boiling hot weather that we had got for the weekend. So so I've just met you briefly, Cait, but I've been following you on Facebook, and your posts on Facebook are just absolutely beautiful. And I always read your posts because they give me something to think about. And again, it's just the poetry, just the poetic way that you write. So I'm going to read out Cait's bio here. So Cait started writing poems at home in Easter Ross in December 2020. Over 40 have been published online and in print. A trustee of the Wee Gathering and Monarch Moor, with Sinead McCullagh, Cait won Dreich's Classic Chapbook competition in 2022. So Cait as well has Dreich Press was winner of the Dreich Classic Chapbook. The songs I sing are sisters. Facilitating poetry writing workshops at Lairg and District Learning Centre, including online as an option. And you've co-produced a film, and you're trustee at the Monachmoor Creative Writing Centre, and again co-director of the Wee Gathering Poetry Festival, and fellow of Society of Antiquaries in Scotland. Okay, so without much further ado, welcome Cait McCullagh.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Donna. I'm just laughing at my fellowship of the Lord of the Antiquaries. Anyway, so I'm going to read for you a poem. You can hear me, can't you? Yes. I'm going to read for you a poem that I wrote in workshop with the amazing Kevin Higgins, whom we've lost so recently, and who has been responsible really for the encouragement of so many new poets and poets that I know and have come to know in this great convivial family that we all form. And no poet is ever alone, writing alone. Donna, you're part of the legacy that I step into with your 20 years of poetry. But this poem also appears in the chapbook that I wrote with my sister poet in Sligo, Sinead McCullagh. She's here tonight. Sinead and I have never met with skin on. We are pandemic poets. We met online and we started to correspond like a sort of 19th century love affair, sharing poems with each other, which we found assembled our stories and the commonalities between us, and enough difference that we were able to put together the chapbook, The Songs I Sing Your Sisters, which has just gone into its 3rd print run, which is amazing. So, but there's still, there's copies for people who would like to buy them. This is a poem called Flight. My mother kin is a wild goose. Against the wolf moon, she is oil black, an arrow painted on luminous cloud. You hear her brood call, heavy-winged she beats, behind closed eyes, between fingers filtered, feathers splayed to cradle you, she navigates the night's doll, shades the silver handselled sea. Euless has burnished her obsidian smooth, in flockless flight, unschemed, alone, except for this ache of peat, this saddening of snow, our shakened migrant hearts. Thank you. So this next poem is a poem that I wrote almost a year ago. And almost a year ago, I was admitted to hospital and diagnosed with cancer on the 24th of February. So as I was being shoved into canisters and scanned all directions, I was also watching on screens the invasion of Ukraine and that country and people. And this is a poem that I wrote in that week. It was published by Poets Republic, and it's forming part of a collection I'm working on, which will be published next year by Drunk Muse Press. This is Turning Sunwise. I wake and remember that we will hear no sirens. And hands hungry, I lift your unwalked feet, drunk on the futures that will unfold their fatness, forgetting they will march the lines our father scored across her mother's lands. Trespassing the hush of your dreams, I break the night's fast of words, knowing that they will not be our last. Under fire, I name the untethering of people and places, coax you from sleep into this glittered loiter of morning sun. We share battalions of bread soaked in ochre in burst yolks, Silent, the screen watches as mothers unwrap bairns in unyields of swaddling. I tell you, today we will not run. Our names will not be among the listed lost. I promise we will hear the white storks sing. In the city, a mother surveys her child's body, surrendering to gentle crusades of fresh, dimpled flesh, swathing peach-tender heels, lamb-soft enfolded. Her tongue, her lips, kissing history into the slumbered welcome of infant ears. Her language already retreating, hearth-born litanies raised to forgetting. She recites fragrance, taste, essence, Dnieper corn, Carpathian walnuts, cherries of Azov. Spilling not one, she sows sunflowers, seeding canopies of unceasing hope, weeping shields of love. She recalls the daylight, always turning sunwise, for this is what the living do.
Wow.
Thank you. So I want to read for you a poem. It's the first poem I wrote actually in my December 2020 peeling of poems out of me. And at the time I was writing an article, I was asked to write an article on the Mother and Baby Homes report, which came out in Ireland, particularly the tragedy of those places where so much life was cast asunder, set like chaff into the wind and into burials in places that it's hard to regard. And at the same time, I'm an archaeologist, so at the same time I was reading about this amazing burial in Wiedebeek in what's now Denmark, a burial that was set into the ground at a time when people were still nomads upon the earth. They weren't, settled farmers. There was no necessity to take such care, but this beautiful burial of a very young mother and her neonate baby, so a baby which hadn't been born or was maybe stillborn. And I was so touched by the care. The bodies were laid with the baby's foot in its mother's hand, and they were decorated beautifully. And the child's body was the wing of a swan. And I just thought, this really is the vision we need before us, this way of giving a canopy of care. So when we read about the horrific things that happen in our world, we can also look to our human story in this birth. To remind me that the sun will return, I paint ochre onto your body, this unruly lull of limbs and hair, and I chew the deer's hide soft, make a shroud of teeth and hooves for you, birthed but never born. Wings clipped at your moment of flight, I bury you among the mounds. They circle this turf like beads of coal. Your body I give to oil and quartz, to this necklace of jet and bog. Cradled upon the wing of a swan, stories swarm like beetles from your grave, carved between the care of earth and stars, torn from a throat tarred with tears. They fall like arrows from a bow and tell of swans and geese and hungry women who hunt. Each tale is like a fawn lost in the forest. In the quietening, we hear its pulse. People who will always be poets will search the whole world's ebb for your stories. They will tell how the fire ochre sun opened your wings and how you found its flames about the earth. Thank you. And this is my last poem. Poets really need people who love them because, it's a kind of demanding thing to sit and to write. And so this is a poem because it's nearly Valentine's Day, so I don't mind to share with you this. Let's refuse the commercialism and bring back the poetic of Valentine's. So this is a poem for Ivan. The Blue Note. Hopeful for the summer that you always bring, I take the heat of your hand to my neck, to my mouth. I lift the blood-warm calf's milk, cupped from a can. And in the tides before us, rattling drifts to dawn. I lean into the lean legs of you to listen as you tell it to me, that music of the blue note, the flattened curve of grief. It keens at our hearts, and you say, it is there in the wail of blind Willie Johnson, or when Ella tilts the chin, lifts open her eyes to sing. Ella looking to Duke, your eyes on me, and they are love singing the nearness of you. I feel it too, I whisper, just this brief trespass of words, and you and the milk, sweet on my lips. Thank you.
Wow.
Cat, thank you so much. Who said wow? Linda, you said wow.
Yeah.
I think it was Joe put up in the chat that your words are just exquisite, and that is so true. Your poetry, it's exquisite. There's a few, and as well, like you did the poem for Kevin Higgins, and I only met Kevin Higgins briefly, but as you said, like just anyone that's met him could understand the loss that the world has with him not here anymore. There was that thing about the baby and the onions of swaddling. That was beautiful, and the fresh dimpled flesh, and that as well I thought was really funny. You came like as she said, I'm an archaeologist, eh? I didn't know you were. I mean, you were speaking about, you know, the mother and the baby. I'm just so glad it was you that found them, because that must have been like very, very beautiful, and to be part of that humanity. Yeah.
Oh, well,
absolutely.
I should say I didn't dig that particular grave. No, I was reading about it, but it was at a time because I've been very privileged to excavate, to be present, seeing the last marks of death. So I have exhumed, excavated, yes, human remains, but which are really the people that, you know, that walk the earth that's under our feet. So yeah, so it always touches me, Donna. It's a great privilege to have been. Yeah.
We're them and they're us, aren't they? Yeah. Cat, thank you very, very much for that, Cat and Martin. That was just absolutely amazing. So I'm now going to hand back over to my co-host, Linda Jackson, who, when I was in Gran Canaria and sleeping in the room next to her, I couldn't get any sleep for coughing.
I knew that. You never even
I
told
was like,
me.
and I was just being quite polite with her. I was like, no, you didn't waken me up. You didn't waken me up. What do you think, Linda? So far, it's just been amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, what contrasts. The
Mm.
contrast of the voices and the subject matter, incredible. And that lyricism, the lyricism of the last two poets, particularly, you know, Martin's lyricism above humanity, looking from nature and the world. And then I think, you know, I've always thought with Cait's work, I'm catting for now on Cait. Cait's work, she just goes right into the heart of all of us, really. So it's the human nature as human and the best we could be. We always quotes Tom Leonard's, you know, the whole idea of the universal human. So I think when she was saying that all poets need to be loved, I think everybody needs to be loved, and she probably does it wherever she meets, whether they're dead in a box and being excavated or just meeting her somewhere. Thanks for being around the world. But I just thought these lyrical poems were absolutely wonderful. And then, you know, what we've had so far, the poetry before that, that kind of eclectic, you know, almost postmodern look at the world from Darren, quite racy poetry and, you know, capturing life at the edge in some ways. And then Heather introducing us beautifully to humour, performance, and me to the Godbo's Vampire. I'm down to check that out, Heather, in the morning. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been really, really wonderful. I love having these evenings, and I agree with Donna, just being able to sit in your own house when it's raining and cold. As people who are interested in poetry, are interested in what it is to be human, just listen to this. It's such a joy, and I'm humbled taking part. So thank you very much, everyone. And now we've come to our guest poet. We have everyone as guest poets, but this man we've invited up, he has various poetry collections out. I met him, I think I heard him on something, and I bought his book, and then I was, you know, a wee bit of a groupie pursuing everything and reading everything. And then I invited him up to Glasgow to read at Avant-Garde, and he was there reading with Hugh Macmillan, and we had such a laugh. And Lou, his wife, came up, and we ended up staying here and having breakfast, and then just beautiful people. And then I was trying to get myself organised, my red lipstick on, of course, and I looked out the window, and there was the bald Bob out on my wee roof terrace beside the bins, doing his kind of, he would give me the right name, but it looked like some kind of martial art with a stick, except we didn't have a stick. So I thought, God, I've had these people staying the night with me, and he's mad. But anyway, he's not mad. He's extraordinarily talented. Just got his doctorate last year. I know from people I've spoke to, he's immense tutor of creative writing, and he's a brilliant writer on myth. As I say, just became a grandfather, and the photographs, if you don't follow Martin on Facebook, sorry, if you don't follow Bob on Facebook, even if you're not interested in him, you have to see this little baby on Facebook, because it's such a character. It's a wild child just waiting to be. So, but how he describes himself, I described himself as multi-talented, and again, another heart of gold. But also, his way of describing himself was extraordinarily pragmatic. I live in Middlesbrough. I've published numerous collections of poetry and several pamphlets. His most recent is The Last Almanac, which I'm reading, and I'm loving it. I was in my bed, all cuddled up, reading it last night, a wee glass of water, and then with coffee this morning. Fabulous collection. If you've got some time and a space on that poetry bookshelf, I know that's difficult, but you can find a wee space in your poetry bookshelf, get that book. And another one, he obviously likes long titles, because this one is from Stairwell Books in 2021, and it's called When We Think We Are Whalers from Eden.
When we wake.
That's it. I've got it through there, but I just can't read more in writing, and anybody that knows me will understand that. When we wake, we think we are whalers from Eden. And then I've got this one as well. And then we saw The Daughter of the Minotaur. That was brought out by Blacklight Engine Press 2020. Civil Insolences, which I also have, you can imagine, just by the title. Smokestack Books 2019. And that's only a few. He's a phenomenal poet, and an inspiration to most of us listening to him. So here we go. What are we saying, Donna? Without further ado, I feel like my dad at a party at Christmas. Take the floor. Take the floor. Bob Beagrie.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this tonight, and to all the other readers. What fantastic work! Mythical and funny, and take you to so many different places. I'll be definitely looking out for their publications. So I'm going to be reading from The Last Almanac, which came out about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. And although there's poems in here that span 20 years, some of them I wrote last year, I've kind of arranged them all into a calendar of days. So it starts with the winter solstice and ends with the winter solstice. There's a lot of poems in here, so I'll just do a selection of them. I'll start with the first one, The Seeding the Solstice. Here, once, there was a storytelling throne, but now the way over the bridge is barred by ranks of tall, tufted grasses, ash and beech, have retreated behind a thumb-smudged sky. This wee glen clings fast to their taproots. It's warm in the woods for this time of year. No snow, no haw-laced twigs, not one puddle wearing a plate of ice, but so spaciously still between the damp trunks. Each gap a stage in waiting. At the heart of the dell is a pond that floats the low sun's sinking face within a frame of moss, fallen leaves, snail shells, moor hen feather, around which we've come to scatter our swollen parts like the decaying galaxies of crab apples, to let both sourness and sweetness season the soil from which we hope to grow with each lengthening day. This is another early one in terms of the year. It's a January poem. It's called Something Like, but Not Quite Purpose, which is an odd title. Something like, but not quite purpose. The early evening darkness makes the compressed voices of the rattlers at the alley gates reverberate down the street as they wait for the dealer to appear from behind the steel bins with a pocket full of brief forgetfulness. And while I wait for you to get home from the job that's coming to an end as you know it, up on Eston Hills, kids are lighting fires like beacons to ward off the Spanish Armada, and the last blast furnace at Teesmouth has been demolished. Mum's skinny feet are throbbing with arthritis. She learned to swim among slag heaps near the Gare, but hates the creeping signs of old age, and Dad's increasing deafness is one of his secret comforts. Everyone is getting back into the grind, going dry, hitting their own treadmill, looking forward, glancing back. The solid spaces around each of us have been painted by Vermeer. The wind is keening its bitter woes in the chimney, and while looking for the wet wipes under the sofa, I have found a new word, but have no idea what it means. Soft and fresh as a snowbell, fragile as a newly hatched chick, potent as an ink-capped shroom. It's been growing there, I think, since New Year's Day, and it stains my cupped hand like a freshly plucked heart as I hold it up to the lamplight, leaking a drop of sticky sap with each short instinctual beat. I've got my class here. They're clapping at me. Okay, so this is a very short one. It's like I'm dying of hypothermia, she says in a Gateshead filling station where the heat is packed in, even though it's just been fixed. Though she's loving the fact that she can smell again after 2 long weeks of bunged up flu, especially as that fit workman in oil-stained orange overalls smells so sweetly of peaches. So we've just had in bulk, 1st, 2nd of February, it's just a kind of turn in the year, and there's an in bulk poem in this. So I'll read that. I'm struggling to remember the warm face of the sun, but it's there somewhere in the bottom drawer of my brain, like the stroke of the most familiar hand when I woke from rotten, shuddering fever dreams, and a voice known from before sense memory formed. In that time, before our counted time began, in this beautiful, bleak world of bare bark, twig fingers, mud, low, freezing mists, slow occurrences are occurring in their own good time. So many ordinary miracles unfolding beneath the surface of this dumb, anesthetized crust. Underneath the numb, throbbing, the cracking of stiffened water, those pangs for sameness, is that hoary soreness for what we will inevitably become, whatever it is we happen to carry, shed, or pass on. Thank you. And this is called Evensong. Gibbous moon latched by a dream catcher, crooning the blues over snow-swaddled hills where towns and villages break like waves in the curtain twitch of isolating suburbs. The holy watchfulness of the little egret perched upon a bare branch over the gill, with the patience of basking ivy leaves, its own pale smudge snagged amid debris, going nowhere fast in the cold lunar flood, the yearly catastrophes of freeze and melt, clogged drains gargling fresh darknesses, the waters glow with living room lamps. She sails twilight in her threadbare shawl, the ancient parade of the not yet born, between day's demise and hatchling night. The sky is like the wide open sea, gone quiet, lulled at last from turbulence, laid out across thickening murk, dropping away as she dips her slippered feet into skullcaps of sleep, skips over the white moors to Stainsby. 50. This is a strange little poem called Film, as in like shrink wrap film. The day is shrink wrapped in cellophane. I weigh it in my hands and peer through the protective sheen at the buildings, trees, concertinaed roads, the folds of weather and the people. Some I recognize, some I don't. If I prick my ears, I can just make out the tidal wash of their muted conversations, tightly packed and impenetrable. Like so many plastic packets, my clumsy fingers can't split the seam to scatter the treasures across the floor and sort them into new arrangements. Instead, I carry it around like a birthday cake, then take a nap and use it as a pillow. Abracadabra. This one's called Abracadabra. It's about the sun's finally coming out in springtime. And enjoying the feel of it on your face. Abracadabra. Like a music hall magician, the sun steps out from behind curtains of cloud and we all glance up. Everyone tilts their faces skyward to feel its presence, tickle their cheeks. It speaks through touch, a fizz on the skin of all things solid, but it is only the liquids that readily commit to its beckoning. Come, it says, lift and rise, lift and drift, and all that's wet obeys. The raindrops on leaves, the puddles in the road, the blood in my veins, particle by particle dance, lift, rise and drift like party balloons, like bubbles in a pan on the hob, like applause to the end notes of an ancient song. So there's quite a few poems that I've written in this book that were inspired by trips to Scotland and holidays in Scotland. So I'll read a few of them. This is called Border Blessing. Just for a moment, let's stop here. Having set an automatic reply on Outlook, shut off out of reach to a quiet spot not known of before, to sit in the shade of a young rowan, its leaves serrated, quivering tears. Eyes surveying the slopes of Rubislaw without any immediate threat of reaving moss troopers. As the sky deepens into ponderings that pluck from nowhere a pinked half moon, marbled with mould. While the whoop of wood pigeons sends it buoying higher, it is the crow's cause that cut it loose. Let's wake next morning, glen swaddled in a blanket of mist that has swallowed all directions and distances. The wooden slats of the shepherd's hut, each blade of grass, thistle heads and holly bushes tethered together by dew-heavy cobweb. Dunbar Dream Song by Broxmouth Woods. My dreams come in droves of gull spume and spray veils at the tide mark of Bass Rock, of ragged lines of dungeese singing farewell to the quarry, the warble of crumbling ruins, kittiwake shrieks and sea pinks and toadstool gills by the burn, of ghost bairns racing barefoot through thickets, dangling from branches, raiding nests for mottled treats to ward off a stitch or pangs of hunger or failures known shrugged off, unrecognised old infidelities picked clean as sea winds flap at our tent, tug the guide ropes, shake the poles and pegs of a silver thumbprint smudged in a tarnished sky over a cementwork chimney, of troopers preparing to strike at first light, the subsequent scramble, screams, slaughter, flight from the reeking, the capture of colours, the blue cap surrender, the harrowing march to the south, of soft grey thistleheads quivering at dawn, sea drift over golden meadows just this side of the summerlands, the ever-shifting shades of the tree line, of storm clouds sweeping in from the kingdom of Fife by Broxmouth Woods. These dreams come in droves. Measurements in Ullapool. You lap at the salt of Loch Broom from wet fingers. It tastes like the last place on earth. All the mountains you've passed today still thunder through your mind like dominoes click-clacking on the tabletop, gulls squabbling over scraps. As daylight swims out toward the summer isles and the dark crawls down from the corries, you calibrate the properties of memories of all your favourite places. Your instruments, a finger of driftwood from the shore, a flat white stone from the Pictish fort. I'll just do two little ones and then I'll finish. This one's called page 100, Cait over Morton Castle. Swallows are reaping harvest of midges and water boatmen from the loch's hide, scudding disturbances, breaking mirror images of trees on the cusp, the jutting gnarled stone of the ruins standing roofless, hollowed out, its seat of power long sunk, swallowed up by sod, while a red kite circles effortlessly, sailing airstreams of this end of August evening, scouring the scrub for any sign of supper. Its Largo waltz about the sky's ballroom. Over the great hall, the high-pitched whistle resounds off hillsides, rings inside abandoned sheep skulls, carries like bloodlines across centuries.
Oh.
And I'll finish with one called Old Uncle Tay, and I wrote it while I was staying in a little cabin on the shore of Loch Tay. The loch's blessing is a sleight of hand swell, palmed by a prenup of giants. One dolled up as cloud, another in needles, thistle, bracken, a third a gasp when the sun blushes her jaw, another in nothing but stoic patience. Its relentless slap and tickle at all the wholesome broken bits, with its so many numb mouths, slurping the humbugs of quartz, barite, flint, honeyroot, wolfstone, hermit's prayer, as well as the reasons for his seclusion. Their erosion into each season's amnesia is a savouring of drift branches down to milk stains, vanishing tricks, then finding a brand new penny behind each of our left ears, a wink to beg forgiveness for its compulsive borrowing and gifting back, transformed, just like that, just like that. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh. Well, I'm just looking at the comments people are making. I mean, the large walls, a kite. This is for me, you know, we've got Bob. Hugh McMillan writes in the back of this book, Bob Beagrie's poetry is contemporary, but it has an authority which comes not just from the skills a poet should have, erudition, range, skill, imagination, relevance, but from that great tradition where a poet is at the peak of his powers and speaks to and for his people. By Hugh McMillan. I mean, what I find sometimes as well when I'm listening to Bob is there's almost a kind of angst about existence, but a philosophical kind of walking towards all we hope, love, and also the detail of, as I see that Cat has written that, the detail that he gives us about the world that we're in, it's just so particular. I know this area. I spent a lot of time in the Summer Isles and Ullapool, and fortunately, I just went back there with you. I felt as if I was back up there. It was just incredible. I love this book. The kids lighting fires. Humour, there's such like humour. Mum hates the signs of old age. Dad's deafness is his secret comfort. I love that. An elderly couple, you know, the woman chipping away and the man just, the way he gets away has just been, I'm not in, you know, I'm not here, I can't hear. I love that. And also that kind of a suburban nightmare, or that urban nightmare of the kids setting fires because there's nothing for them to do. We've got the COVID darkness in there. Honestly, this is a phenomenal collection, folks. I would say it's a gift to yourself, the Last Almanac. I mean, what I've written in the back, and I believe this, there is a polyphonic quality to the language of this collection. Bob, when you talk to him over breakfast, is scholarly, philosophical, and then he just hits you with that, you know, Middlesbrough, Teesside, everyday man stuff. And I absolutely love that. The language of this writer's own people, but above all, the poetics of a writer at the height of his skills. There will be more, many more. And I have to say this, and I believe it, there's no writer quite like Bob Beagrie. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Bob. That was wonderful. And I think a lot of these images will stick with us. Loved it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
I'd like to ask everyone just and show yourselves and say thank you very much to all our performers this evening and our readers. Get their books, get their work. And engage. And our next Zoom SCAP is on the 15th of March. I hope you'll join us. I think thereafter, as the sun comes up, we're going to try and get people money, train tickets, and get you to come Zoomers in the room. So we'll talk about that in the next event. But please join me and Donna and everyone. Just all go on there, and thank you very much for coming along and listening. And above all, thanks to Donna. What did you think, Donna?
I say, it's just listening to everybody's poetry, and it's like a mantras, and we're speaking to ourselves as well when we're writing poetry, and that, and just Bob, that whole idea of a pocket full of forgetfulness. Yeah, we've all had one of them once in a while. And that as well, these dreams come in droves. It's like, yeah, that for me is the beginning of a poem. I'm going to steal that line.
Well, I was thinking, see all the wee notes we've taken down. I would love to make a wee poem. Poem from all of them. Darren, you know, just get lines off all these people and just see what I'm going to do it. We'll do it together, Donna, and we'll send you a bit of nonsense
We'll
all
give
of
you
the
some
work together,
mention.
it's beauty.
We'll give you a mention. But again, it's thank you to Cat, to Heather, to Bob, to Martin, and yeah, that's it.
Darren.
And
Darren.
Darren from Brighton, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in Brighton in the summertime. That would be absolutely fantastic. Again, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's been a very special night again, and I think the kind of storm's away. My windows aren't rattling anymore.
We sent
Anyway,
it away with these lovely poetics. The lyrical poetry went out the window and sent it all off. I'd like to say thank you to Mark as well, Mark Cunningham, for helping us organise and bringing us in. So enjoy your evening, folks. This makes me want to go and write, so that's what I'm going to do now. And thanks for inspiring me to think about going, not organising some, no teaching anybody, no getting an event together, no editing anybody. I want to go in and write after that, and thank you, all you writers, for giving us that inspiration. Good night, and thanks everybody.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.